Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Cathedra webinar. We are coming to you live on January 22nd, 2026. If anybody in the room is an NLC webinar first timer, know that our Cathedra webinars get their name from the Creek word for learning. And today you're going to be learning about Switchgrass for energy independence with your instructor, Roger Kushwa, who is CEO of CRC Biofuel Solutions of America, Incorporated. My name is Brooke Warrington, and I'm the Training and Development Specialist here at the Native Learning Center. We're also happy that you could be with us today for the webinar. If you could follow along while I read the disclaimer aloud, this webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes, and the material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. And then we do also have our copyright infringement law printed here. This is just a friendly reminder that the webinar materials are protected by copyright, trademark, trade secret, and other intellectual property laws. Roger prepared a really great list of resource items for you that are available for download in the courses section under Switchgrass for Energy Independence. But I have also included the link to the presentation slides for you in the chat. And then moving forward, if you want to check out the recording or share it with a colleague or a friend, you'll be able to find that in the courses section as well, all under Switchgrass for Energy Independence. And then if you opt to tune in for a future webinar with us, I hope you do, you can join like you did today and just click on that green banner at the top of the screen. We do typically ask that you join with listen-only capabilities because we are recording. It just helps to cut down on audio feedback. And if you joined and maybe the sound's coming out of the wrong device, maybe you're trying to use your earbuds, maybe you have a Bluetooth speaker, whatever the case might be, if you go down to the bottom of your screen where you see a telephone icon for me, you might instead have a headset icon. But either way, that will pull up a list of your speaker devices and you can select the proper audio output. And then even though we ask that you join on mute for the sake of the recording, we do still want to encourage class participation. We want to know your questions. We want to know your comments. If there's tech support issues that I can help you navigate through, I definitely want to know those too. So we will rely primarily on the public chat for this. So if you go over to your messages panel, it's gray, a little bit to the left-hand side of the screen. You can click on public chat to open this. And this opens up a chat between our webinar instructor, Roger, me, the NLC staff, and then you, the attendees. That's where I mentioned previously that I posted a link for you to the presentation slides. You'll just come down here to where it says send message to public chat, type what you'd like to say, and then you can either click enter or you can click on this cute little paper airplane button and that will send it in. If you come up here just below public chat and click on shared notes, that's going to bring up a helpful list of links, like ones to the webinar feedback survey, our YouTube channel, things like that. And if you did join with your mic on, no worries at all. You could just mute down here. And if you think maybe we missed a question along the way, you could always use that hand raise feature that's all the way to the right-hand side of your screen. And we would love to know who is present on the webinar today. If y'all don't mind introducing yourselves into the chat. You could let us know what your name is, where you're tuning in from. It's always really fun to see all the different tribal nations that are represented. Your work or your role in Indian country, it might have led you to the webinar. You might just be here for your own personal information. And your tribal affiliation, if you have one. You might be a tribal employee and you don't have your own tribal affiliation. That is okay too. You are absolutely still welcome. And then I just have a quick final warning while y'all are introducing yourselves in the chat. If you want to just avoid clicking on that red menu column that's all the way to the left of your screen, yours might not be expanded. You might have just the little icons, but if you click on it, it's going to pull you out of the webinar and take you immediately to whatever you put. Yeah, there's no warning message to pull you out. So we want to try to avoid that. You can always rejoin with the green banner, but it's just a little heads up for y'all. And then while you're introducing yourselves in the chat, it is with great pleasure that I introduce your webinar instructor, Roger Kushwa. And Roger, I have made you presenter now.
All right. Thank you, Brooke. I appreciate it. And yes, if you do click over on that red thing, it will take you out immediately. So my apologies for that. I want to thank everyone for being here this morning, especially Brooke and Georgette and the other staff at the Native Learning Center for this opportunity. It's a pleasure, it's a privilege, and an honor. And I'm excited about Switchgrass. I'm excited about the potential that we see for Switchgrass, especially with the Native communities and the tribal nations. And so please, if you have questions, ask. If I don't know, I'll get the answer for you and let you know. But anyways, I appreciate it. I know everyone's preparing for the bad weather, and I spent yesterday and this morning doing that for my family here in North Carolina. So I understand, and I appreciate everyone taking the time to be here today. So switchgrass. What is switchgrass? We're going to define it. We're going to see what makes it special. Why is it unique? Why do I get so excited about it? What is the history of it? Where does it grow? Will it grow in my area? Where has it grown historically? Then we're going to talk about the technical data of switchgrass. I will be honest with you, this section is full of science. I'm not that good at all these scientific terms, so we'll make it through it. It may go very quickly. Anyways, we'll get through that. Then we'll do the Farm to Fuel project in Virginia. And this, as far as we know, is the only successfully running program using switchgrass as its primary biofuel. It's a very interesting project. It's been going now almost 19 years. So we're very proud of that program there. And then how do we see developing and growing switchgrass on tribal nations' land and nations helping nations? How do we see this working in the tribal nations? So what is switchgrass? Is what we call a native warm season grass. What is a native warm season grass? It's a perennial grass that thrives during the hot, dry summer conditions. In other words, it's switchgrass. And that is one of the unique things about switchgrass that makes it such an exciting and interesting alternative. Warm season grasses. Warm season grasses are just that. They grow in the warm season. You look at the bottom chart here and you can see that you're generally looking somewhere around May to end of September. Typically, it'll start growing when soil temperature gets 55 degrees or warmer. You look above that and you see the cool season grasses. And we will go through that. When the settlers came here years back in the 1700s, switchgrass was prevalent. It was everywhere. They had no experience with it whatsoever. And they overgrazed it, they plowed it under, had no idea what it was. And so it was very new to them. They didn't understand it. And so therefore they plowed it up, got rid of it. It is, as I shared, it does have a strong history with many tribal nations and in using that in their everyday life. It does grow west of the Rockies, primarily from the Gulf of Mexico or America, whichever you want to call it, all the way up into Canada. The only 3 states right now that do not have active large scale is going to be Washington State, Oregon, and California. But as soon as you come west of the Rockies, all the way down to the tip of, Texas, all the way across to the tip of Florida, all the way up into Canada, switchgrass will grow. There's been a lot of genetic research, modifications, various strains that have been developed to grow in colder climates or in wetter climates. And so there's been a lot of development of switchgrass varieties to adapt to these changing climates. And so it'll pretty much grow wherever most people are. Again, coming back to the Europeans, they had no experience whatsoever, no knowledge of what a native warm season grass was. So they overgrazed it, they plowed it up through ignorance, destroying the original stands. They replaced those stands with exotic cool season grasses like bluegrass, tall fescue, orchard grass. These are just a few of the grasses that they replanted. The challenge with these is that they require annual maintenance. They require fertilization and all of that on an annual basis. Switchgrass, once it's established, unless you have an invasive species, you don't have to do anything to it. It just grows. and you harvest it. And so that's one of the things that we like about switchgrass. It also grows very well on marginal land. So that means that if a tribal nation has land that they're using for food production, but they have land that is not good for food production, they can take that land that's not producing food and they can actually plant switchgrass on it. And that switchgrass can grow and it sequesters carbon. It provides habitat for small game animals and game birds. It prevents soil erosion. It improves the water quality in the surrounding creeks and streams and ponds. Switchgrass has an extremely deep, long root structure. Goes anywhere from about 4 feet to 12 feet. And so therefore it's very good for the soil. All of the microbial content from the roots and whatnot just benefits the soil quality, preventing the soil erosion, both from water and wind. Those are two very big contributors to erosion. Technical data. Now this is the part that's going to be, can be dry. It's not one that I am super familiar with. My father is a wildlife biologist and he understands all of this, and he was going through this with me and I was going, and so I will do my best and we'll go from there. What a native warm season grass is, a perennial plant. What that means is that it goes dormant every year. Regrowth begins in the spring, like I said, when soil temperatures reach about 55 plus degrees. It's a reliable crop with an annual sustainable harvest. And once it's planted, it will grow for about 15 to 20 years before you need to replant it. I apologize, that was my phone. I forgot to silence it. But it will grow for 15 to 20 years before you have to replant it. And sometimes it'll go longer than that. So it makes it a wonderful plant in that you don't have to replant it every year. You don't have to fertilize it every year. You basically plant it, and once it's established, it takes 2 years to establish. Once it's established, unless you get an invasive species or something comes in that happens, you don't have to worry about it. And so this is one of the things that really excites us about switchgrass and tribal nations and tribal lands. Tribes have a tremendous amount to concentrate on and to work on, and they're trying to do a tremendous amount. And if growing switchgrass can remove that land management aspect, it frees them up to do other things. Not only do you not have to worry about the land management aspect, but you're also making a revenue off of that land. And we're working with a tribe. Now, when I say working with, we don't have a contract. We're talking back and forth, but we're answering questions. We're working with them. We've looked at the land. We're going through and we're talking. And they're currently doing hay on several hundred acres that they have. And they're looking at switchgrass because, like I said, every year they have to go through, they have to plant, they have to fertilize, they have to do all of this. And you get the runoff into the ponds and creeks. It's not in keeping with the natural vegetation of the land. And they're looking for something that provides a different aspect, a different goal for them. And the carbon sequestration, the wildlife habitat, the improvement of the soil structure and the soil erosion benefits, and in keeping and in working with the water and improving the water quality are all things that are very important to this tribe and to this land that they have. And so, we're working with that and looking at that. There are a number of programs that are available to cover for planting that will actually generate revenue for a tribal nation in the first 2 years while there is no harvest. The one program that these folks are looking at actually does that. So they will make a set value per acre for the first 2 years. And then after that, the company that we partner with comes in and pays them a set amount per ton harvested. For this grant, it has to be a 5-year term, but once that 5 years is up, then the tribal nation has an opportunity to extend that farther. So it just provides lots of opportunities. Here's where I'm going to struggle. Native warm season grasses are C4 plants and photosynthesis. C4 plants can produce more biomass and less nutrients, water input than cool season grasses. Basically what that means is that they grow, they grow thicker, they grow taller, and they don't require as much water as the cool season grasses do. They have higher concentrations of CO2 in the plant tissue because of the root structure. Switchgrass is able to sequester large amounts of carbon. And so, Brooke warned me of that. Tillers. Tillers are the small buds at the base of the plant. They grow. This is how it grows. Like I said, this is right. Here's a picture of the tillers and what it means. Switchgrass is a bunch grass. When you look at it, and later on in the presentation, I have some pictures of some fields of switchgrass. And when you look at it, it looks like just regular grass. So you don't see the tufts of grass at the bottom or the bunches of grass down at ground level. However, this is what makes it ideal for small game animals and game birds, especially quail. The wildlife department loves it for quail because it's this bunch grass. You have these natural created paths at ground level for the small game birds to travel on. When the seeds fall, they fall into these areas between the clumps, and the birds are actually able to eat the seeds there, as opposed to having all of the vegetation and whatnot on the ground, and they struggle to get to the feed on the ground. The initiation of the native warm season grasses as a biofuel project. In 2005, Virginia Tech and the Conservation Management Institute developed a project to look for a new biofuel cash crop for Virginia farmers. My father was doing consulting work there at Virginia Tech back then, and he was tasked with working with the Conservation Management Institute to try and find uses for switchgrass and a new revenue stream for Virginia landowners and Virginia farmers. And in 2006, Virginia Tech and the Conservation Management Institute sponsored a national symposium on the supply and demand of native switchgrass or native warm season grasses for biofuel. And out of that, came that they needed a demonstration project using native warm season grasses, switchgrass, and Piedmont Geriatric Hospital in Burkeville, Virginia, decided to step up and use their biomass boiler. We called it a biomass boiler because they were burning wood products at that time. The hospital was built back in the early 40s and was originally burning coal. They then switched to wood products and had been burning wood products. And what interested them about switchgrass was the challenge that they had in the wintertime getting either sawdust, wood chips for the boilers. When there's snow on the ground, ice on the ground, loggers can't get into the woods. Logging companies can't get the lumber out to get it to the sawmill. Sawmills can't cut. If sawmills can't cut, they don't produce sawdust. And so what this meant is that something that was in the mill's way in the spring, summer, and fall was now suddenly sitting there, and people who were burning it would pay more for it. It's the old supply and demand. So when the supply shrinks, and the demand increases, that supply is going to become much more expensive. And so this was the problem that Piedmont was having, some other institutions in Virginia was having as well. And so they were looking at switchgrass to use it as a bridge fuel to burn when they couldn't get wood products, or to extend, you could blend it with the wood and it would extend the supply that they had. And so that was one of the reasons, the primary reason that they were looking at switchgrass. So in 2006, the formation of the cooperative for the native warm season grass, they came up with the Farm to Fuel project. It involved Piedmont Geriatric Hospital, FDC Enterprises, Nottoway County, which is the county where Piedmont is located at, and the Virginia Tobacco Commission. And you may be asking, well, what does a tobacco commission have to do with biofuel and growing switchgrass? And the reason that the Tobacco Commission got involved was because Virginia farmers weren't growing tobacco, and they had this land sitting there, and they didn't want it to go to subdivisions and strip malls and that. So they were trying to find a use for that land, another product or crop for that land. And so the Tobacco Commission was very, very interested and actually played an integral part in the early establishment of the Farm to Fuel project there at Piedmont. Here are the main players there, and you can see their names. You have L.W. Wilson, who was the steam plant supervisor. You have Ronnie Rourke, who was with Nottoway County. The gentleman in the middle is Fred Circle. He is with FDC Enterprises. Fred is the gentleman that we work with to come in. If you have land and you're interested in planting switchgrass, then Fred and I will be the two that come in and look. And my father has actually worked with Fred for 20 years, more than 20 years, and has known him. So he and our family go way back. My dad still does work for him. The other gentleman there is John Prosite. He's with Nottoway County as well. And then Steve Bowen was the facility manager and over all the facilities there at Piedmont Geriatric Hospital. And so this group of 5 men were instrumental in getting the Farm to Fuel project there at Piedmont established and going. Challenges. The challenges were immediate in that they had no supply of native warm season grass. There were a few people who were growing small stands of switchgrass, but nothing of significance. They had no equipment. There was no equipment available to transport it or process it. There was no storage facility. So once the grass came out of the field, where do you put it? Where do you keep it? Switchgrass is very absorbent, so it absorbs moisture very quickly, and it can absorb quite a bit of it. And then there was no guidelines or experience in the processing or the direct firing of native warm season grasses to produce steam. And so these were just some of the challenges that they faced early on. As we go through and we come to the research and the development portion of it, I can go over more of what those challenges were. So 2006 to 2010 were the trials and errors. And this is where we see where they made the commitment to see this through. In all of the research that I've done and talking to a number of facilities that actually tested burning switchgrass, they all had very similar challenges. And the top 3 challenges that they had was, 1, the quality of the fuel. The grass at Piedmont, let me back up. The grass at Piedmont is grown on 13 farms in the surrounding 6 counties around, in Nottoway County and then the surrounding 5 counties, I guess. And so you've got 13 farmers who are trying to bring grass. Well, if a farmer's granddaughter's got a recital, they're going to the recital. They're not going to harvest grass. And to get the moisture content right in the grass, it has to be harvested in a very narrow window of time. And so this was one of the problems that we experienced at Piedmont, and all of the trials and tests that I have people that I can find and talk to, this was one of the big problems that they had, was just the consistency and quality of the fuel. And moisture content has a huge impact on how efficient a boiler is. The next problem that they had was the supply chain. You have 13 people, you're trying to organize 13 people to bring anywhere from 1 to 4 or 5 wagon loads, or, you know, anywhere from 8 to 24, 30 tons of material in a 24-hour period to your facility. Well, the hospital has to have it. And so they need dependable supply chain. And again, you're trying to deal with 13 farmers. That's extremely difficult. And so through that trial and error, and in looking at that, they came up with a model that has worked fantastic for the last 8 years at Piedmont. And that's the model that we encourage. That's the model that we look to provide and bring in for any tribal nation that is looking for switchgrass ultimately down the road to use in its steam and electric generation. The last hurdle that they had is silicate is a part of the chemical makeup of switchgrass. And when you're burning wood products, wood is typically 30 to 50% moisture. So you have to burn an incredibly high furnace temperature in order to cook that water off, to dry the fuel out, to get it to burn, to create the steam. And what they were doing is they were burning switchgrass, which out of the field there at Piedmont, we were running less than 15% moisture. And to be honest, at the hospital, we were running anywhere from 11.5 to 12.5%. That is out of the field. That is not going through any dryer, not going through any type of drying process. That is baled out of the field, kept in a storage facility, and brought to us. And so when burning it at those super high temps, silicate is one of the chemical components of switchgrass. And when you burned it at those high temps, where they burn coal, where they burn wood products, it liquefied that silicate. And it is an amazing thing to stand there and look in the boiler. And I've had this happen and witnessed it once, that it looks like lava. If you look at the pictures of the volcanoes that erupt in Hawaii and you see that lava flowing down the land, that is what looks like. That's what it looks like inside the boiler, is you've got this silicate mass that's just moving throughout the boiler. And the last thing you want in a boiler is anything covering any heat exchange surface. And so that is not a good thing in a boiler. And in figuring this out, we've been able to come up with a process on where to set the boilers and how to set up and what temperatures you need to avoid in order to avoid having this problem happen. And so those were the three primary challenges that not only Piedmont faced, but all of the projects that I can find across the nation faced. The only difference was Piedmont stuck with it and figured it out. And I was fortunate when there. I worked as a boiler operator, boiler mechanic for 4 years. So I actually worked there and worked on the boilers and saw what happened. And so this is a stand of switchgrass, and you can see it looks basically just like any other field. Early on, they did not have the equipment to process the switchgrass. They did it just like hay, and here they are. They're just putting the bales, the round bales, into one of the barns on a piece of land. Early on in the testing, because there was such small test plots, or just small plots of switchgrass, they would cut the switchgrass, they would put it in the white sacks, and then they would take it to a farmer who had a tub grinder. And for those of you who don't know what a tub grinder is, it's a piece of equipment, has a tub sitting on top. You drop the bale in it, and it's got a grinder, and it grinds that grass up, and it runs it out a conveyor. And this, of course, was blowing it on the ground, and they were scooping it up and putting it back in these white sacks to take back to Piedmont Geriatric Hospital. And there you go at Piedmont. This is at the boiler facility. This is the feed auger that is going into feeding boiler number 3, which I'll show you a picture of boiler number 3. But this is, they had to feed it by hand because they had such a small supply and they weren't sure how it was going to work. And so I think the first run they did, they ran for an hour on Switchgrass, and then they were up to 4 hours, and then they were up to 40 hours, and then they were up to 40 days. And so all of this testing was trying to get the chop length right, the length of the grass. I'll go through and show you what happens when you don't have that right. You don't think of grass being hard as concrete. Trust me, it is. Here they are, they're feeding it in hand, and you can see how long this grass is. You can see the length of it there. And because it was too long, here's what happened. And this is boiler number 3. This is the feed auger going in. This auger actually pushes the fuel into the boiler, and it has packed up, and it is like concrete. They were using that, it's a 4-foot pipe wrench, trying to turn that auger to get it out. They tried to pull it out. The marks are still on the wall where they had a 4x4 and a come along hooked on the end of that, trying to pull the auger out. They stopped because they literally thought they were going to pull the 4x4 through the wall and break the wall there in the plant. So chop length was something they had to get right, and they worked on it and they got it figured out. And when I worked there, we rarely had any problems with jams. If we did, it was because of something that was picked up during the harvesting or something that was accidentally picked up at the grass facility and dropped in. Here's a picture of the tub grinder. The gentleman on the left, or the left here, is Jeff Robertson. He is the gentleman that owns the equipment. This is L.W. Wilson, the gentleman who was the manager of the steam plant. And then this is a picture of my dad. But this is early on while they were still messing with and trying to figure out chop lengths. Here's the tub grinder. You can see they're loading it in. It sits there and then it comes out. The next one will show it coming out. And what they did is they blow it in. But you can see right here, you can see all of the dust. And this is one of the problems that they had early on. I can remember when they would bring the walking floor trailers, they weren't doing the chopping here at the plant. They were actually doing it at a facility in Blackstone. And we had to wear respirators. We had to close all of the windows, doors, and vents into the boiler plant, because when they unloaded, if you had any of that open, it sucked all of that dust in, and it just covered everything. We were standing behind the unload area and we're still covered. You still had to blow yourself off with an air hose. The dust would drift across the field 150 to 300 yards and would coat cars in the parking lot. And so it was just really a mess. FDC Enterprises has done a fantastic job of developing a process, and we'll go over that later on, that probably reduced that dust easily 95%. It was unreal, the difference that it made, the harvest method made. But there they are with the tub grinder. Here it is coming out of the tub grinder. There's a unload area in the floor with an auger that's going through the augers before it takes it over to a bucket elevator to go up into the silo. This is in the bottom of the silo, and these are two 30-foot long extraction screws. So the grass all sits over top of it. This is a newer photo. You can look at the grass and see how much shorter it is. I took this when we had to clean the sides of the silo out, and I just thought it was a really neat picture. But you can see that, see how fine it is. One of the things in doing solid fuel, understand this silo carried coal, it carried wood products, wood chips, sawdust, and switchgrass, and they never had to change any of the internal infrastructure in the plant, i.e. the augers, the drag chains, the bucket elevators, all of that made the transition to switchgrass, and the plant didn't have to change anything. And so most of the time, this is what will happen. We need to come out, we need to look, we need to check for possible areas where it can bind up or, choke points and that type of thing. But typically you won't need to change any of your equipment if you're already burning a wood product or coal. And so this is inside the furnace door. We maintained the furnace, and then of course when furnace temp gets too high, this actually will look like lava. It flows. It is wild. It scared me the first time I saw it. I didn't know what was going on. Okay, so improvements in the harvest and equipment and storage facility. First of all, does anybody have any questions? I haven't seen any pop up, but if you have a question, I'd rather answer it now than maybe waiting. If there are none, I'll go on, but okay, very good. Improvements in the harvest and equipment and storage facility. As I said and shared, FDC Enterprises is the company that we've been using. They started in 2003. In 2010, 2017, they had planted 270,000 acres in 26 states. As of last year, they've planted over 500,000 of acres in the U.S. alone. They've also planted in Latin America and in Europe. And so they have extensive experience in planting. Their stands achieve, I believe it's a 95+% success rate on the initial planting. So these folks know what they're doing. Fred knows what he's doing. They come in, they plant, they take care of. If you have land, they come in, they will assess the land. They will cover all of the planting costs, any fertilizing cost in the first 2 years. They do all of the harvesting. They come in at least twice a year to check the stand and make sure that everything is as it should be, that we're not seeing any invasive species, that they're not getting, that they don't need to come back and reseed or replant certain areas. And they do a great job of that. And then they come in and they do the harvest. And they either will leave it there until they have room in the processing facility to take it, or they'll take it straight from the field to the storage facility. And all you do is go down and get a check out of the mailbox at the end of the year. And this is why I was saying earlier about the land management, that you're actually generating revenue and you're not putting forth any financial obligations. You're not putting forth any time. Nobody's having to try and figure out what's going on. How are we going to do it? Who's harvesting what or whatnot? It's all handled with one person, and you don't have to worry about it. You just, like I said, collect that check out of the mailbox. The traditional 3-pass harvest system. For those of you who are familiar with cutting hay, you have the cutting, the raking, and the baling. And actually, there's another one in there, because once you've cut it and raked it, unless you're going to bale it that day, as soon as you put it in the windrows, rake it into the windrows, you have to come back the next day once the dew's dried, and you have to flip it and turn it so it can dry, and then you bale it. And so, and then depending on your setup, you have to come back in again and pull those bags out or pull those bales out. And then, you would take it to a tub grinder. This is how they used to store switchgrass. You can see the round bales. They would cover it with the tarps to try and keep it dry. I talked about the absorbency of it. This is one of the things that makes it an excellent poultry bedding product. It's what makes it an excellent, you've seen the erosion control socks that they have on road construction sites that they put down to control water and erosion. Well, 9 times out of 10, those socks are filled with switchgrass because it is so absorbent and does such a great job. And so you want to keep it covered. You want to protect it from external moisture. They went from the round bales to the rectangular bales because, and if you've ever stacked hay or dealt with hay, the round bales take up a lot of space. You have a lot of dead space between bales, whereas these rectangle bales do not. And so they're able to load them, pack them tight. You're able to get more bales, more tonnage per vehicle. Then FDC came through a few years ago. They got a grant to develop equipment. And the equipment that they developed can come through and cut, rake, chop, and bale in one pass. And then the white marshmallow sits out on the field and you pick it up and bring it in. Or you can stack it there in the field. It's not a weather resistant. It's a weather resistant coating. It's not a weatherproof coating that's around that bale. I was talking back earlier about the Tobacco Commission. Well, this building actually belonged to the Tobacco Commission there in Nottoway County, and the county leased it to FDC to store switchgrass for Piedmont Geriatric Hospital. And so this is very early on. This facility has a concrete floor, and it's got a truck scale. And so they were able to come through, and this is where they store all of the switchgrass that Piedmont uses. Out of the over 3,000 acres that are planted in the 6 counties, Piedmont probably uses about half, between half and 2/3 of that. So the excess Fred uses for other projects and other things. And here again, you know, you're still making the revenue. Hospital. 24/7, 365, doesn't matter what the weather conditions are. This is early on. They were using dump trucks. When I was working there for 4 years, they actually had tractors that brought in wagons that had a walking floor in it. And so they would fill the wagon up with anywhere from 6 to 8.5 tons. And they would bring that in and they would unload it there at the plant. And they would use that walking floor trailer and it would just drop right down in, go through the augers over in the bucket elevator up to the top of the silo and drop in the silo. And you can see the framing here where they started to build a cover for it. And that cover is there now. And so, but this was, again, one of the problems and challenges that they faced in the logistics of it. Because if you've got bad weather, the farmers weren't wanting to get out. They weren't wanting to do this. And FDC made the commitment, and they did a fantastic job and still do a fantastic job. Several years ago, they had a piece of equipment that caught fire in that building where they have all of the switchgrass stored. Sorry, I thought I might. Okay. They had a piece of equipment in there that caught fire, and it actually burned almost all of their stock there. And the hospital, we never shut down because we couldn't get grass. FDC brought grass in from wherever they could, and they kept Piedmont going as a hospital, which was huge for us, because when you look at the price per ton that we were paying and what we saved the state, and then you look at the volatility of the number 2 fuel oil, we saved them hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And had this gone, that FDC not made that commitment, then the hospital would have had to come up with, the state would have had to come up with all of the money that it would have been required to buy the number 2 fuel oil. And FDC did that, made that commitment and got that grass in from anywhere they could and everywhere they could. And they did a fantastic job, and we never once ran out. So new era, from 2010 to 2017 is when they were doing all of the testing on chop length and trying to figure out, doing the test burns, getting the grass planted, getting the stands planted, to provide the fuel for the future. And so this is where they were. FDC came in and they established a 5-year sole source contract with Piedmont Geriatric Hospital for 4,000 tons a year. Like I said, they've got over 3,000 acres leased in Virginia with over 13 landowners. They are getting ready to increase that by another 6,000 acres. So they've got big plans. This tells you about the first farmer in Virginia that was growing it specifically for Piedmont. And Dr. Falcon was actually one of the doctors there at Piedmont, and he was committed to the program and committed. The cooperative storage, again, the switchgrass bales. It started out bales, round bales, and the rectangle bales, and now it's the white marshmallows are moved and stored here. And this is in Blackstone, Virginia. This is early on when they were doing the round bales, and they tried doing the white plastic around the round bales, and they ran into problems with that. One of the reasons was because of the chop length. Longer grass will stick through that white membrane, and anytime you poke a hole in that plastic, moisture gets in, and moisture creates mold. If you're trying to feed livestock, you know all about the mold that gets into hay and into those round bales. And they run into the same problem with the switchgrass. And so the new marshmallows look very similar to that. This is what they're using to pick those marshmallows up. The marshmallows weigh about 600 pounds a piece. They pick them up with this. This is how they move them. They pick them up, they cut them, they blend them on the floor, and then a front end loader picks it up and puts it into the tractor for them. And the concrete floor, you can see the concrete floor there. The concrete floor is very important because it keeps them from picking up rocks and things like that when they bring it to us. Because when you get those rocks that are in, or somebody drops a piece of wood and nobody catches it and sees it, and it gets brought to the plant and runs through the auger systems, it will stop up those feed augers. It will stop that bucket elevator. And those were the times that we had issues with the fuel, were usually caused by a foreign object being in the grass. And it wasn't FDC's fault. It was just one of those things that happened. And so they do a really good job of trying to make sure that everything they brought to the hospital was clean and good. You can see, here's another picture of it. Here's a side shot. You can see some of the white down here, then the rectangles and the rounds. And so Piedmont's or FDC is just trying to get that grass out of the fields where they can get it there, keep it dry, and use it. So a summary of the project there at Piedmont. You can see they reduced the fuel costs. The price per ton of the grass hasn't changed in the 10 years that Piedmont's been testing, and in the 8 years that they've been using it as their primary fuel source. The price per ton has not changed. And if you're a facility trying to budget your heating costs for next year, that is huge. Fuel oil prices, number 2 fuel oil prices, varied anywhere from $2 and change to $5 and change per gallon. And that is huge. And when you're trying to budget that and you don't know, having that stable fuel cost, accountants and your fiscal department will love Switchgrass because it makes their job a whole lot easier. Since 2011, we saved the Commonwealth of Virginia over $3 million by burning switchgrass as opposed to number 2 fuel oil, provided a stable cost. I'm sorry, it wasn't $2 and change, it was $1.56. I know that's low. I should have changed that, and I apologize. It was $5 and something that we got. And I know that because I was there and unloaded it and got the bills. But anyways, we offset burning. That means by burning switchgrass, it would have taken 2,285,156 gallons of number 2 fuel oil to create that same amount of steam. And so by burning switchgrass, we didn't have to burn that 2.2 million gallons of fuel oil, and we saved over $3 million. reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And actually, it's probably a lot more than this, because we only base the greenhouse gas savings on the grass that we burned. And we're burned only about between half and 2/3 of what was produced. So that number is low, but I don't have the metrics for that, simply because it's, the environmental people only give you broad ranges or broad numbers to calculate and tabulate carbon sequestration and all of that. So that's the challenge for that. We've improved the local economies by generating over 150,000 in additional revenue. The wildlife habitat, soil and water, provided an annual income for the 13 landowners. Again, after the 2-year, when FDC can start harvesting, they go by a per ton. You get a set amount per ton. So they haul and weigh everything that comes off of the field, and whatever that tonnage amount is, they multiply it, whatever that agreed upon price is, and you get a check for that. Awards and recognition. In 2017, the Department of Energy actually did a video on the project there at Virginia, and it's called Growing Bioecono Markets, Farm to Fuel in Southside Virginia. You can actually go on YouTube and pull that up and watch it. We have a link to it on our website. In our contact information, we have a QR code there that you'll get and see. And you can go and watch it. It's right at 7 minutes. It's just a little shy of 7 minutes, about 6 minutes and 50 seconds. But it's very interesting. It goes through just a brief history of the program and why it was important for Piedmont. Then in 2017, it also was awarded the Virginia Governor's Environmental Excellence Program Biofuel Gold Medal, which was quite an honor for them. This is the picture of the boiler staff, and there's LW, who was the boiler plant superintendent or supervisor, and then these guys are the boiler operators, and then there's a picture of my dad. So conclusion, as I shared, switchgrass is a great way for a tribe who has marginal land that they don't know what to do with, but they want to do something. You can plant switchgrass. It does not have to be used for bioenergy. And you know, the tribe that we're working with, they don't know what they want to do yet. They don't want to know how they don't know how they want to develop the land that they've got and what they want to put in. But by going ahead and planting switchgrass, one, they start generating a set revenue every year. They don't have to manage it. They don't have to do anything except go down and get the check out of the mailbox. And it gives them time to figure out what they want to do. So the land's not sitting there idle. It's not going to waste. It's not growing up in thickets and, you know, all the invasive species that come in and like to grow up in unused land. And so they're able to do that and provide the wildlife habitation, provide the control for wind and water erosion, to help improve the water quality and the surrounding tributaries and that type of thing. And so, you know, if you have land and you're interested, reach out to me. Let us know. We'll see what we can do. And, you know, there are lots of grants available. There are lots of areas to go for grants. You know, the Department of Energy, the Wildlife Department, the Environmental Department, private and nonprofits, environmental groups and whatnot, all have programs that are available. And, you know, we will work with you to try and find the way that it costs the tribe the least amount of outlay of capital expense to get this going. And then this is something that we want to see continue for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, 40 years. We're looking forward to that. My father will be 91 in May, and this week he's going back down to Piedmont to pull the monthly numbers from them. So he's 91 and is still working. He also traps, and he does work for Fred there in the state of Virginia. So I feel that I'm going to be around, the Lord willing, for a lot of years. So I look forward to working with you and trying to find a way that preserves what the tribal nations feel is important for their land, and that is a benefit to them, to keep that mindset, to keep that vision, to keep that level of importance, but yet still be able to generate a revenue to help with what other projects the tribe wants to do. Let's see. The multiple revenue streams. So we talked about the biomass for the boilers, poultry bedding. Tyson's and Purdue love it for poultry bedding. Because of that absorbent nature, it protects the birds' feet from ammonia burns. You walk into a chicken house or a poultry house that's using switchgrass, and you don't get knocked over by that ammonia odor. It protects the birds' feet from ammonia burns. My understanding from them is that there's a huge Asian market for chicken feet, but they're not interested if they have ammonia burns. So if you can take those, if you can put switchgrass in and control that ammonia and get good feet, then that just gives you another revenue stream for them. Livestock forage and bedding. Canada is using it for livestock bedding and forage. It is not recommended for goats and sheep for forage. We talked about the erosion control socks. Home heating, pellets. Canada has a huge switchgrass infrastructure in place, but what they're doing is they're pelletizing it and using it in pellet stoves for home heating. You can do that. That is all you have to have is a pellet mill. And at Piedmont, we did that. They tried the pellets, and they also tried the pucks or the discs. And there was no measurable increase or decrease in the steam per ton or the BTU value per ton. All it did was add another layer of cost on for the end user. However, if you can get a pellet mill and you want to create your own pellets and sell it there on the reservation, on the tribal nation, the reservation, for heating purposes, you can do that. And so, you know, it provides that as well. And then, of course, as I said, the hands-free revenue stream for idle or marginal land. This is what the Department of Energy video looks like on YouTube. So you'll know what it looks like, and you can click that. Like I said, it's right at 7 minutes, just under 7 minutes. And then this is my contact information. The QR code will take you directly to our website. I know Brooke and the staff there have all of our brochures. We just completed a 19-year summary of the program there at Piedmont, and have all of the savings data and the sequestered data, and all of that is in one place. You can take a look at that. And so that pretty much wraps it up. I would love to answer any questions if you have questions, or if not, I'll hopefully we'll see everyone next week at the Seminole Energy Conference. I'll be presenting there, and if I can get out of North Carolina, we're hoping. And so, I appreciate, again, the Native Learning Center and Brooke for all of her work, and Georgette and Jasmine. Those ladies have done a fantastic job. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Roger, I'll just go ahead and do the outro. Feel free to type any of your questions that you might have to Roger into the chat. Roger, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing this important information. Sounds like Switchgrass has quite a future ahead of itself. As I told y'all earlier, there is a link to the presentation slides in the chat, as well as in that shared notes section. And I also just put a link to the webinar feedback survey. So that does just take like a minute or 3 to do. It's completely anonymous. I'm the one who pulls the results. There's no emails, there's no names. It's just numbers, and that doesn't connect to anything. So you can be candid in your feedback. It just helps us at the Native Learning Center know what's working well with our webinars and what we can improve upon for the future. And then we do share that feedback with our instructors as well. So it helps everybody all around. There's even a spot where y'all can let us know future topics you'd like us to try to get for a webinar. So it also helps you attendees. We hope you can join us for our next webinar. That is going to be not next week because we're all going to be at the energy conference, but the week following that on February 3rd. And this will be developing engagement plans for clean energy projects. This is going to be the 3rd part of that series. And this one's going to focus on connections and conflicts between cultural traditional tribal values and project environmental impacts. So that should be a good one. That'll be with those same instructors, Michelle Holliday and Kit Cole, who also will be presenting at the energy conference. And you can access this as well as our other recorded webinars on our YouTube channel. We do have a full YouTube playlist called Cathedra Webinar Archive. It goes back about 2.5 years. YouTube is a free resource for you to use, so I encourage you to check out our archives. And if you ever need help finding anything specific, you could always shoot me an email and I can help you out with that. I'm putting my email in the chat right now. And please check out our other upcoming events. Roger mentioned our energy conference, but we're doing all kinds of trainings all the time. We post about them to our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. We have our in-house produced podcast, the Hope a Thing, a Native American podcast. You can listen to that wherever you listen to your podcasts, or we post the recorded videos with our special guests on YouTube as well. Otherwise, that is all we have for you today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, Roger, for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Doesn't look like anybody's typing any questions in right now. So I'm going to go ahead and say bye to everybody, and I'm going to turn off the recording, but I am going to leave the actual class open so that if y'all need to pull any of those links that are in the chat or in the shared notes, you are able to do that. And then I'll post the recording tomorrow morning once it generates. So if you want to share that with anybody or go back and revisit, you are able to do so.
Brooke, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good one and safe travels.
Okay.